Good afternoon. Well, we still have winter temperatures, but nothing like in the Northeast, and we'll talk about that in a minute. It's about 30 degrees here. Slighter wind, but there's a wind. You can feel it. And the sun is out, but it doesn't seem to be making much difference except to illuminate the roads. So that's that. You know, we often talk about breaking news, but very often it's not breaking. And in this case, we do have breaking news, and that is to say that we have shot down the balloon that has been traveling from the Aleutian Islands and across the United States, covering air bases in Montana and elsewhere. And just as it's about to leave the country and head across the Atlantic, the airspace was frozen over an area where the balloon was, and it sounds like a fighter took out the balloon. It says it lost air gradually, and that was probably an effort because it has to fall 60,000 feet, and they hope to get debris to find out whether it was a weather balloon, as China says, or it was a surveillance vehicle. There's another, quote, weather balloon going across Latin America. And given the words of our commander-in-chief about Taiwan, I wonder if this is poking the bear to see if we would do what our commander-in-chief did. In fact, he said when he was presented with this situation, his first thought was, let's shoot it down. Now, I'm glad to hear that. But then he thought about the debris falling on population centers, and there was, I guess, a period to give China an opportunity to own up to it. And when the U-2 happened many, many years ago with Russia, we didn't own up to it. So there's a history of not being, shall we say, entirely candid in cases of military surveillance by one nation state of another. It's very interesting that throughout Northeast America right now, Arctic air is charging down from the top of our planet into the Northeast. And for example, Mount Washington is like 109 degrees, minus 109 degrees. And it's at the mount, at the top of it, it's like minus 40 degrees. Boston, to give it a measure that sounds more humane, if you will, is something like minus 10. But the interesting thing about this is the structure of water. Now, Holly and I, my wife and I, we went to Antarctica. And one of the things they talked about there was if you went out in their winter as opposed to their spring, the water inside the teeth would crystallize as it does at certain temperatures, which means it takes up more space, and so then the teeth would crack. Well, they're having little crystalline quakes in the Northeast, in the wood, because the water in the wood, the water in the ground, these frost quakers expand, and it sounds like a quake. But what it is it's water leaving its liquid state, going into its solid state, and taking up more space in a crystalline structure. Yes, as a kid, and since then, every once in a while, I played around with making crystals and so forth. And I always found this fascinating. It's obvious, but it's, water is one of those things. It can be a gas, it can be a liquid, it can be a solid. When it becomes a solid in this situation, watch out for the crystal quakes. The temperature that's going on now makes us the equivalent, if you're at 4,000 feet, as if you're existing in the stratosphere. So it's a fascinating study, and yes, it is a function of global warming. In a category of environmental questions and concerns, there's talk about gas stoves. Now, my family, when we were in the Bronx, we had gas stoves, and we paid a gas bill. But gas has several problems. One is people leave it on and risk explosions. Another is that gas, when it leaks, gives off methane and benzene, which are bad for the environment. So the question is, should we be doing gas or should we be doing electricity? And how the electricity is generated is another question. But there have been instances out here in rural Loudon, where I live, ever moving toward a more suburban nature, but still rural, in which gas supplied leaked into basements, and people ended up dying because of what we always are told, don't have certain gas things going on in your house, make sure they're outside and so forth. Now, how you pipe out the gas while you're using it is another thing. I don't know if they're trying to ban gas everywhere or if this is just a policy preference. But there it is. We're electric, so we haven't had to deal with it. I haven't dealt with a gas stove in years, except when I visited some place that had it. And I have to admit it's a kick, because it takes me back to being a kid and being told to fire up the gas stove. More seriously, and that is a serious question, but more seriously, the House Judiciary Committee has announced they're going to investigate Biden's documents going back to Obama. Now, I'm not saying that that is wrong as a concept, but when the selection is of Biden and not the former President Trump, and apparently not Pence, or more general than that, you have to say it's no Jacket Jordan on one of his rants going off for political purposes and not really caring how right or wrong he is. So there is one other thing that bothers me today. You may have heard that the DNC had discussions about the presidential primaries. And they want to make North Carolina, they want to make the Carolinas anyhow, the first primary, and to skip Iowa and New Hampshire because there's so many white people there. Some say it exactly that way, some don't. But here's my problem with this. The law in New Hampshire requires that they have their primary when they do. And the Republicans are going to be there for that primary. And the meaning is that if Biden is of the view that he's not running until he's in the Carolinas, then he's going to skip the New Hampshire primary, and I guess the Iowa primary. Now, when I hear about that, I think of Rudy Giuliani thinking he could skip primaries all the way to Florida. And by the time that happened, the year he was trying to run for presidency, he also ran. He was nowhere. And the notion that we're better about accepting the rules and we don't finagle when it comes to how we conduct our elections, I think on that score, Biden comes up short. Sure, I can understand the appetite to win more easily. But when you're talking about the integrity of elections and you're shifting around a season that's gone on for 50 or 100 years, you're making a big mistake, I think. And more than that, it's a political statement that is really, beneath the posture Biden took to get elected in the first place, and he's prepared to compromise it now, and he should not. Although they've already done it. So it's going to play out. I think it's going to play out badly. So I can just imagine the Republicans running in New Hampshire, agreeing on one thing. We're here for all the people. But Biden, no. He only wants to be with those woke people. I'm not saying it's true, but it is going to be a campaign line. And the answer would be better if we left things in place. Is he running scared? Does he have polls that tell him he should do this? If he does, then he should be doing some of the other things we're saying, the hard choices. Lead us into a more secure republic, a more secure democracy. Fight autocracy. Make it clear that's what you're doing. So yes, I'm a genetic Democrat. I support Biden, but I haven't lost my tongue and its ability to be critical when I think we should be critical, all of us, we the people. So here I am in what is a less chilly day, and I'm among my cathedral of trees, and I'll probably see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.